Okay. Our next forum features the candidates for the Clark County Council District 2. Joining us are Martin Pittione, Michelle Belcott, and John Zingali. Welcome to all of you. Candidates, please watch the league timer and stay within the timelines for each question. You will have 60 seconds to answer each question unless instructed otherwise. You'll first answer in the order that you appear on the ballot, and we will rotate after that. All questions are prepared by the League of Women Voters of Clark County, and we're providing the timers. Candidate Pittione, how long have you lived in District 2, and what skills and abilities and experiences with community organizations would you bring to the position?
Well, first of all, thank you to the League for organizing this event and having us. My wife Dinah and I have Clark County as our permanent home. We've lived here for about over 4 years now. With respect to the qualifications and the skills and abilities that I bring, I have a really deep bench of experience, primarily in the last 25 years in government services and making government agencies run well. I've balanced agency budgets. I've done a lot of oversight work with boards and commissions that operate a lot like Clark County Council does, and that also have legislative functions, public input functions, and so I have a wealth of experience that is primarily in the public health arena, in the financial regulatory oversight arena, that I would very much hope to bring to the council. It comes with a significant record of accomplishments that I've built in public health, in the opioid crisis response and mental health response that I think would work really well on the council.
Thank you. Candidate Belcott, how long have you lived in District 2, and what skills, abilities, and experience with community organizations would you bring to the position?
I've lived in District 2 for 10 years, but I grew up in Clark County. I've been here mostly all my life, except for when I served in the military. I served 25 years in the military. I'm a mother of 2, and I'm your Clark County District 2 incumbent. I spent 25 years in both the Navy and the Air Force in many command leadership positions, and I have a few degrees in management and organizational leadership. I think this has equipped me with proven budgeting and leadership and strategic decision-making under pressure, especially when it's come to serving on the council for 3.5 years. Aside from serving on the council, I've been a civil servant for over 20 years in acquisition and procurement of multi-million-dollar construction, architecture, and engineering contracts.
Thank you. Candidate Zingali, shall I read that again? Are you
No, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all, especially to the League of Women Voters for having us all here tonight. I'm John Zingali. I've been living here in District 2 since 2018. There was a little blip this last year. You know, when you get divorced, sometimes you gotta go find some new housing. I was 50 feet away from the border. Now I'm back living there right in District 2, right next to my kids. But I've been teaching here in Clark County since 2013 and serving the community at Vancouver iTech Preparatory. I've worked hard at things my entire life. Prior to teaching, I actually spent 16 plus years in the grocery retail business, started bagging groceries, worked my way up to assistant store director. I know how to do things and get things done. And then after moving out west, I, like so many, went back to school, got my master's degree in teaching. And for the past 13 years, I've dedicated my life to teaching our youth here in Vancouver and across Clark County, I should say. For that, I've won lots of local, state, and even national awards. I'm the current 2026 Southwest Washington Teacher of the Year, and I fostered a love of learning, and I've learned through all of this how to be innovative and lots of different things. And so I'll run and bring that dedication, perseverance, innovation, and critical thinking, and lead with empathy.
Thank you. Candidate Belcott, how do you suggest we finance maintenance and expansion of Clark County's regional park system on a long-term basis as demand grows and resources become more limited?
Well, I don't normally support taxes, but in the case of parks, I recently did. We have a pretty robust budget when it comes to the construction of parks, constructing or remodeling them, but not so much when it comes to the upkeep, because that comes from the general fund of the county. And that's always a challenge because we are a county, unfortunately, that has a sales tax leakage issue because we're right next to Portland. And what does that mean to us? A lot of us go shop over in Portland because some of us are tax evaders. So that unfortunately takes money from our general fund. I think there are ways, and we've discussed this on council, in order to raise additional revenue to keep the parks in the most beautiful way that they can be. And recently, we just talked about finding actually people who did not pay the park entry fees and what that would look like and the amount of revenue we could potentially raise for the parks. That has not come back to the council, but we are having conversations about that. I also recently spoke to a Parks Board member.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Candidate Zingali, how do you suggest we finance maintenance and expansion of Clark County's regional park system on a long-term basis as demand grows and resources become more limited?
My kids literally play in our Clark County parks every single day. They are important. It's one of the things that keeps bringing people here to Clark County. And we have an issue that we need to address. There was an article, I believe it was in the Reflector just this last little bit, about moving to a metropolitan park district. Now, that would have to be brought out to voters, but that would allow us to spread the costs out across the entire county and alleviate some of those different stresses. Under that approach, the revenue from the district would be shared with cities, which would also then be able to manage their own parks within those different boundaries. And so as we look forward to managing all of this, I really think we have to look at this innovative design that's been working in King County and other places so that we can sustain, and not just sustain, but grow our incredible parks here, because they are part of the reason why so many people are living and love to live here.
Thank you. Candidate Pittione, how do you suggest we finance maintenance and expansion of Clark County's regional park system on a long-term basis as demand grows and resources become more limited?
Well, so first of all, I agree with both of the other candidates that came before me on this question, that parks really are critical to the livability and the sustainability of this community and need to rank really high up on the priority list. So there's really, in order to answer that question, one is within the budgetary resources itself of the county, which I realize are very limited. We do have to, quite frankly, come to an agreement that the parks themselves need to be a top priority. That said, I do also agree with the statements already made that we really need a regional funding strategy that goes beyond kind of the structural problem that we have right now and addresses this much more broadly. So I agree with also John's comments on that relative issue, and I won't repeat that part. So
All right.
just to keep us all in.
Thank you. Candidate Zingali, residents often feel decisions are shaped before public input occurs. What does meaningful public engagement look like to you, particularly on the controversial land use, taxes, or transportation issues?
Yes, thank you. Public input is vitally important to everything that we do. I encourage it, I welcome it, because that's how we learn and how we grow. I'm a classroom teacher. Every day I get input, and I know whether things work well in a classroom and whether they don't. And sometimes we have to be big and admit that didn't work, and we need to be able to pivot and do something else. And so, I want more outreach. I think we need to be getting into other places, working with cities like Ridgefield and Camas and Battleground and hosting more forums there so that people don't always have to come here, because it's hard to always get here. We need to make sure that we're being proactive and getting out to the other areas of Clark County. I sit on the Historic Preservation Commission, and I get input from people when we're making decisions all the time. That helps me be a better person and a better commissioner and a better counselor, and I look forward to doing the same for the Clark County Council in District 2.
Thank you. Candidate Pittione, residents often feel decisions are shaped before public input occurs. What does meaningful public engagement look like to you, particularly on controversial land use, taxes, or transportation decisions?
Yeah, so for me, there is probably very few issues that are more critical than that. And I actually need to give John some credit, because I believe that he's the first candidate, no offense to panel number one, that actually brought up the issue that it's not enough to have people come to you but it is actually really, really important to actually seek it out, because it's absolutely true, and you heard this on panel 1, that you hear about, just the usual suspects that have the time or the ability to show up at the council meetings themselves. From my perspective, there has to be a lot more done to actually seek out the input of the regular citizens and make them feel heard. I'm an agency head right now in state government. I publish my work cell on the website. I believe direct access to the top is really, really important. And I believe that seeking input, not just asking people to come to you, is an absolutely critical element. It's not just about listening, it's about seeking and having those community events, having those community forums, and going out into the neighborhood meetings.
Thank you. Candidate Belcott, residents often feel decisions are shaped before public input occurs. What does meaningful public engagement look like to you, particularly on controversial land use, taxes, or transportation decisions?
Well, I think public input is essential and must be a priority and not minimized. I talk to constituents on the regular, business partners in my district. As a counselor, I attend community events all the time and neighborhood association events. I listen to people all the time. I know another counselor recently mentioned that we make decisions, but we do change our mind based on public input. That happens all the time, I will say council-wide. So as a counselor, I listen to people all the time. I interact with them. I call them back. I actually physically go meet with them at places that are pretty interesting, actually. I think public input should be above all special interests. I'll continue my clear communication with all my constituents, ensuring decisions reflect local priorities rather than top-down agendas.
Thank you. Candidate Pittione, the county has increased sales tax twice this year without voter approval. It also can raise property taxes annually. What is your position on tax increases?
So, first of all, I don't think that you can answer that question really truly in isolation, really, because taxes is all part of overall government budgeting and spending. I have a lot of experience I would bring to the table keeping agency budgets in check, which also then helps on the taxation end, making sure that programs are run efficiently. The agency I currently run hasn't raised fees since 2015. So I have a lot of experience kind of with cost controls in government itself. The issue in Clark County specifically is that we really have been trying to operate government here with, quite frankly, a constant stream of reduction in ability to actually keep up the services that we're currently funding, let alone increase services, because, quite frankly, inflation runs a lot higher than 1% from year to year, and that's the maximum the county could potentially choose to increase taxes, right? So I'm not one that thinks that good government is really amenable to extremist solutions, either never raise taxes or that's the default. I think it needs to be something that has to be on the table, but I quite frankly prefer to get that as late as in any way possible.
Thank you. Candidate Belcott, the county has increased sales taxes twice this year without voter approval. It also can raise property taxes annually. What is your position on tax increases?
I think families are already stretched way too thin because of inflation. I've consistently opposed new taxes, and I was the sole vote against recent property tax levy increase this year, and multiple years, actually. We must manage the existing resources responsibility, cut waste, cut some staff, unfortunately, at the county level. That was mentioned before. We need to prioritize core functions like law enforcement. CCSO is significantly very important, and they have a staffing issue that we as county councilors need to really focus on continuing to support Sheriff Horsch. That's very important to me. No new taxes or tolls that hit commuters or working families. I'll continue fighting for tax relief and accountability.
Thank you. Candidate Zingali, the county has increased sales taxes twice this year without voter approval. It can also raise property taxes annually. What is your position on tax increases?
Thank you. Yeah, the 1% permissible tax that we're talking about here, it's really one of the only mechanisms that the state gives us to bring in money for our county. And we haven't taken that a lot, and that's why we're running in a deficit. And so as I was meeting with a current counselor earlier this morning, I was told that that could equate to about $5 to $6 a year per household. That's not too much, in my opinion. Is it great? No. But that's less than what inflation is driving right now. And we have to make sure that we have our service levels to the places that people actually want. And if we have to keep cutting things, then the services that everyone is expecting us to provide won't be there. It was mentioned earlier that there's a 2.5% budget reduction. We can't keep reducing and reducing and reducing because the expectations are there. Everyone's going to have that we're going to maintain the parks. We're going to maintain our roads. We're going to provide other services like safety with the police and everything and the sheriffs. And we can't do that if we keep cutting.
Thank you. Candidate Belcott, what approach should the county take to regulating personal fireworks use? Is there a better alternative to use for community celebrations?
Well, I think we're already doing a lot of education in this community. I know that TNT has come to the council multiple times to talk about the bucket brigade, that they provide education. They just did an educational workshop up in Longview, Washington recently. I don't think that we need to be taking a heavy hand and completely reducing fireworks or cutting them altogether. I think it needs to be public education and safety as the priority. We already have pretty extreme limitations on fireworks where we only let them be sold a few days a year. We used to have the biggest fireworks display west of the Mississippi for decades, and that was eliminated after COVID. If that were to come back, I'm sure you would see a large reduction in fireworks happening in the neighborhoods, which would make things probably even a lot better that way as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Kennedy
Yes,
Zingali?
fireworks. Well, I love fireworks. They are fun, they're entertaining, but I also just talked to a person in my community that's left for the week because they can't handle it and their pets can't handle it. So this is a balancing issue with all of that. Enforcement is difficult. I heard fireworks going off 3 days ago. Like the day they were sold, I heard them going off. It would be great if we could just say, hey, we're all going to set them off on this one day, and people can learn to deal with it a little bit easier. But when they keep going off 4 or 5 days later, and people are trying to get to work, it is extremely difficult. I think we need to find the funding. I think it was 2019, actually pre-COVID, when the Forts show went away, and we need to bring that back. We need to maybe work on having a drone show available for people that want that instead of just the big loud noises. We have wonderful places across the county that we can partner with to have lots of different shows and things, and by allowing those to happen, we can reduce the stuff going on in our individual communities.
Thank you. Candidate Pittioni, do you want me to read that again?
No, that's fine. I think that I have a lot of overlap with the prior to answer on the fireworks issue, because the fundamental truth is the community is pretty split on this issue, right? You have those that really like it. You have those that are deeply affected by it. Whether it's they have PTSD or animals or living out in an area where there's horses around that don't, we have 35,000 horses in this county. That's not very much fun for them either. So there's really strong feelings on both sides of that issue. And I think in government, you have to be really careful when you navigate issues where there are some pretty hard passions on both sides, and they probably are a little bit more increasing, especially when you have a 250-year anniversary coming up, right? I also don't disagree with the idea raised by Michelle that it may be better to have one large, very well-managed kind of display rather than putting the pressure on individual expressions. Thanks.
Thank you. Candidate Zingali, county government faces limits on revenue growth while demand for services continue to increase. How would you prioritize spending when funding needs exceed available resources?
Thank you. Yes, there's a lot of things that we need to try to prioritize. Right now, as I was doing my homework for this, I was informed that 75% of all of our costs go towards law and justice right now. That's a large chunk. That means that leaves 25% for roads, parks, housing, all the other things. And so, what I hear every day is we need to make sure our roads are taken care of. And they're like, John, I'm one pothole away from a car payment and a repair that I can't make, right? We need to make sure that that's done. We love our parks, right? We want to maintain them because that's some of the thing that makes Clark County what it is. Our open spaces, that's what brings people here. Like I said, I'm outside with my kids every single day in those spaces. We need to prioritize that because if we neglect it, then we're making, as Councilor Young said, a place that we don't want to live, and we don't want that. Roads, parks, public safety, housing, those need to be our priorities.
Thank you. Candidate Piccioni, county government faces limits on revenue growth while demand for services continues to increase. How would you prioritize spending when funding needs exceed available resources?
Well, I think that there's really two things for me. One is I think it's just important to be really upfront with voters that these choices are going to be very difficult and to have priorities when you have such a constrained funding structure, because the simple truth is if you increase or prioritize funding for Area A, you're going to have to cut Area B even deeper when you're already in a cut environment. So that's the first piece, is to just be honest about those dynamics. The second piece is then how do you make those choices, right? And for me, one of the things that I really like to focus on in my experience with budgets is to be super focused on outcomes. And which part, not simply making an assumption that if we spend X money, let's say on a homelessness investment, right, that all of those expenditures by themselves are driving the same level of outcomes. Can we focus them more on specific ones where we know, hey, early intervention is the key? Oh, sorry. Okay, I'll stop there.
Thank you. Candidate Belcott, county government faces limits on revenue growth while demands for services continues to increase. How would you prioritize spending when funding needs exceed available resources?
No, I've already mentioned that a little bit before. My top priorities have been the sheriff's deputies, emergency services, and fire protection, essential infrastructure, and core county functions. Those are core county functions. I've advocated for redirecting resources toward effective strategies rather than spending programs without results. We need accountability measures to track outcomes. We need to be tracking things much better and not letting some staffing that is not appropriate to be staffed. We need to keep neighborhoods safe and services reliable before non-essential spending occurs.
Thank you. Candidate Piccioni, Clark County continues to experience rapid population growth, particularly in transitional areas. How should the county balance housing needs, infrastructure capacity, and preservation of rural and natural lands?
So for me, really it's really primarily an issue for me of better planning. We have, and one key for me within that is I think we have to do as much as possible and do a better job at leveraging existing infrastructure. That's another way of saying what other candidates have referred to, build up, not out. I do believe that our growth really needs to occur as much as possible inside the urban growth boundary and leveraging the existing infrastructure that we have to keep the costs as low as in any way possible. Within that, I believe that the other piece that I think we have to do is to really also emphasize the issue of permitting improvements and making sure that we can actually support the growth and get more projects online, quite frankly, in a speedier manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Belcott, Clark County continues to experience rapid population growth, particularly in transitional areas. How should the county balance housing needs, infrastructure capacity, and preservation of rural and natural areas?
I believe it's balanced, especially in my district and District 2. We do have, we still have a lot of rural areas and we have more urban areas. I think growth brings a lot of opportunities, but it also strains housing, services, and infrastructure and availability. So we need to plan smartly and not just have a bunch of sprawl, because we do want to maintain our rural areas. We need to focus on affordability, and that is through the permitting process. There is ways to do that smartly, and I have advocated that we look at the permitting process on several occasions to see if there's anything that we can do about that. Also, keeping the tax burdens down, as it's very important, because that will hurt growth as well. I mean, we do have state mandates, but there are other ways that we can look at things and see if we can improve things, especially when it comes to the time our permitting takes, which also increases the cost of affordability of housing.
Thank you. Candidate Zingali?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, by the numbers, I think in 2025 to 2045, we're projected to grow by about 200,000 people. That's going to put our population around 715 to 725,000 people. That's a lot. We have to think differently about the type of housing we're building. Mixed housing, middle housing, where we have houses of different size where someone can start off in a starter home, and then as they progress through life, they can move into one of the next housing up and stuff, and you build these communities around one another. And that's what's going to make Clark County great. We need to also think up, not out, because infrastructure, if we want to keep costs down, infrastructure is expensive. But we have existing infrastructure that we can build around to keep from just spreading out and causing more costs. And so we need to look at permitting, we need to do a lot of things, but we need to think innovatively and outside the box and see what's working elsewhere and bring that here to Clark County so we can create this place that we want to continue to thrive.
Thank you. Thank you. Candidate Belcott, what role should Clark County government play in addressing homelessness and behavioral health needs, and where do you believe responsibility should fall between county, city, and state government?
Well, a lot of homelessness is unfortunately fueled by drugs, mental health, and a combination of housing costs as well. I support a results-driven approach, a balanced approach with law enforcement and mental health providers, not just law enforcement by themselves. We need to not just have a housing first, we need to also have recovery and availability of mental health facilities. That is an issue in this area. Just look at the mental health facility off 134th Street that was built without funded FTEs and is just languishing. That's a diamond in the rough for us. That would be very beneficial in assisting with the homeless issue. Progress requires balancing public safety and preventing enabling. Our current course is just not sustainable. There's more things that we can do, and I know recently the council approved, one of the law enforcement officials that we approve is a heart officer.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Zingali, what role should Clark County government play in addressing homelessness and behavioral health needs, and where do you believe responsibility should fall between county, city, and state government?
The county needs to be much more proactive. After the Supreme Court ruling last year, and cities are now making more rules about camping, more and more people are coming to the City of Vancouver. But houselessness doesn't end where the city border does. Over 99th and 99th, where I live, I see it every single day. The city has made great strides. The numbers just came back. They've reduced houselessness by 18% this last year. By using their safe stay facilities, their safe parks facilities. There's no reason that can't also happen on county land. Let's be holistic about this. And drugs don't cause homelessness. They are a byproduct of people dealing with all of those stressors. We should never victimize the houseless. And that facility that you speak of, I know it well. It's right across from my school. I've actually toured it. That's a state funding issue, not necessarily a county. But maybe the county can work with the state and collaborate to open that facility up. We need to do a lot more.
Thank you. Candidate Pittione, what role should Clark County government play in addressing homelessness and behavioral health needs, and where do you believe responsibility should fall between county, city, and state government?
Well, on my end, I believe that this issue is pretty much under-resourced at every level that you can imagine. It needs a lot of compassion, but it also needs a lot of smartness. It's a complex issue. I've spent 11 years prior to government work in nonprofit service that was focused on services for the very indigent, including the homeless. And I would love to bring that experience to the council. Because in order to answer your question, that experience to me taught me early intervention is key, prevention is key, focus on the root causes is key. It also means that I would very much support the HEART program that Michelle has mentioned. I would love to expand that out of the city and into the rest of the county, because it does not stop neatly at the city. This problem does not stop neatly at the borders of the city. So I would love to be able to see that. And overall, I think we really need better collaboration regionally and leveraging the resources with the nonprofits that operate in that arena.
Thank you. So now it's your turn to close. You may want to elaborate on an answer that you've already given or talk about something we didn't cover, and we'll begin with candidate Zingali.
Thank you again to the League of Women's Voters for having us all here tonight. This is one of the most important civic engagement things that we can do. There are many issues that we have not discussed here tonight, so please reach out to me. My website is zingali4clarkcounty.com. You can also reach me at 360-553-9712. That's my personal cell phone. I'd love to hear from you. I'm running to ensure our county government is as hardworking as the people it serves. For over 13 years, I've served Clark County as a teacher, advocate, community volunteer, and I've dedicated myself to creating the next generation of active and engaged citizens. When elected, I'll bring that innovative mindset, collaborative spirit, and tireless work ethic to the council. I'm honored to be endorsed by local leaders like State Senator Cortez, Mayor McInerney Ogle, and Councilor Fuentes. I hope to earn the vote so I can get working for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Pittione.
So, first of all, thank you to the League of Women Voters to organize this event. Again, it's a real privilege to be here and to connect with voters in this way. I simply would humbly ask for the support of the community and a vote for me based on the record of experience that I would bring to the council, my deep experience in service. That's a lot like what the county council already does. That record is informed by the values of collaboration, innovation. I have a lot of successes in that work in government. I have a record of fiscal responsibility, and I have a record of inclusion. And I would love to be able to work hard for the people of Clark County, and I will be able to make a commitment to the citizens of this county that I can make the work of this council my main focus and my full focus.
Thank you. Candidate Belcott.
My District 2 record shows advocacy for taxpayers, public safety, and listening to District 2 residents and business owners. I'll keep fighting against higher taxes and burdensome projects while delivering practical leadership. I appreciate your time and ask for your support in the primary. Together, we can ensure Clark County government works for the people. Please visit my website at electbelcott.com for additional information, and thank you so much to the Women League of Voters. I appreciate your time.
Thank you to all of you.
Thank you, County Council.